Happy hump day. Hello.
Hello. Happy day, yes.
How have you been?
I've been good. Yeah, it's been a great week.
I hope you like this idea of introducing a new, what you call section. I don't know what to call it. I thought it would be interesting until we get some stories coming in about basically, I'm going to call it, feature this part of the podcast and call it, What Would You Do? What
Right.
would you do? Second point. Yeah, what would you do?
Oh,
So I'm going to read a story
mm,
and literally going to ask you, what would you do? Okay. And the story will highlight some form of discrimination bias, of course. But
yeah.
really, let's just give it a go. You
I
up
feel
for
like
it?
I'm being tested. Yes. Let's go.
You up for it?
Hopefully.
Okay. All right, here goes. Oh, just a disclaimer. I get a lot of this material and resources from the Lean In organization. Sheryl Sandberg founded Lean In. It's amazing. It has amazing resources. And one of the I do facilitation workshops with their material. And I also develop similar material for my own. So some of these scenarios will be from Lean In. So here is a scenario for you. Ready?
Yeah. Let's do
So a colleague recommends a man for promotion over a woman, saying, I'm not sure about her long-term commitment. She just got engaged and I think she wants to have kids soon. What do you do? And what would you do?
Look, obviously, the PC answer is
Oh, I want the PC answer. I want your answer.
So I have never hired based on gender. I should say that. But having said that, you know, we have all joked about the fact that, oh yeah, she's married, she's gonna have a baby soon, but not in a way that we would ever use to not hire someone. But I think, it happens that when somebody gets married, when a woman gets married, it's usually a thing, that you think about. Well, she's going to get married, she wants to have babies soon.
Okay.
So uh, in that situation, obviously, I'd point out that if the woman did a good enough job as the man did, then they need to both be considered for the role. It can't just be the woman. So my industry is very female dominated, so it's just actually men are more rare to be in my industry. So I think you can't take away from the fact that everybody does consider it, that if a woman becomes pregnant, it's she's going to be a mat leave, how long is she going to take, we're going to have to replace her, blah blah. And I think it sucks that it is something people think about. I wish it wasn't, but
Okay.
but in terms of the roles we offer, I don't think that ends up being a disadvantage, because of course we keep the roles open, and it is the same position you come back to, in the same, and it's very flexible in terms of the hours you want to work and everything like that. They want to have you before.
Okay. So there's some, so the point is though, there's some assumptions there. Because in this specific scenario, the scenario is there's a promotion, there's a man and a woman. Let's just say they're both equally good. Or let's just say, for argument's sake, the woman's slightly better, maybe a better candidate. The response is, I'm not sure about her long-term commitment. She just got engaged, and I think she wants to have kids soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then what would you say? Yeah, mate, you're right. Well, what would you do? Would you agree with that? Or would you do something else?
Yeah, so I have been in that situation, and I've said, yeah, you're probably right. She might want to get married and have kids, but if she's the better candidate, she's the better candidate, and we need to hire based on the job and not the possibility that she's going to have kids. And
Okay.
she will have kids, so or she may not, or whatever. But that's yeah, it's more about the job than it is about the person. But I can imagine that in other industries that are not female dominated and have a lot of females, because my management team is pretty much made up of all females and only one male. So we, I think in that case, I can imagine people going, oh yeah, sure, you're right. Maybe it is better, even if she does the better job, to hire the man.
Okay,
Stick around.
cool. And I get that as a consideration.
Mm.
But there's a few things here. There's like, so let me just, this is what it says. Prompt your colleague to explain their thinking, which is I just did for you. So suggest to your colleague that women should decide for themselves whether or not they want to take on new challenges at work. Because somebody's just got engaged, it doesn't absolutely guarantee that they want to have kids soon.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
And even if they did, they might be the type of woman that wants to have the baby and come back after 6 months or 3 months. And I remember when I moved to Australia, I noticed that women took compared to where I was coming from, the UK, women did take a lot of maternity leave.
Yeah.
Which really surprised me because in the UK, you would hardly find anyone taking longer than 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. Cool. And I think it was because I think that at the time, I mean, it could be completely different now. It was like the statutory, maternity payment. I think it was around the mandatory payment was. Whereas here, there's no mandatory. It's like company specific. Or I think in the last 5 years, something was introduced. But when I first got here, there wasn't anything. And people were taking like 6 months a year off to have children.
But I mean, as a difference in my workplace, one of the girls who was going on mat leave, who said she'll come back in 3 months, was actually told by one of the managers, do you really think you'll be back in 3 months? Why don't you take some time? Because you might feel differently, to encourage her to actually take more time than just 3 months, because it just seemed crazy short to
everyone. Too short. Yeah, but that's me. Really, in some countries, it's like...
Yeah. And she insisted on actually coming back in 3 months, and everybody was like, oh my God, that's amazing, because people don't they take a year and so on at least. So.
But that's the thing, isn't it? It's like the choice, how you feel. Yeah. It's making an assumption that somebody's going to take that much time off.
Yeah. And, sometimes depending on who the person is, you can have that conversation. We've done it at work when you've asked women, okay, so do you plan to have a baby? When do you plan to have a baby? How can we figure it out so it all fits into work? We've done that before and said, right, this is what the plan is. So you plan to get pregnant. I mean, not everybody is that open, but it would be amazing if everybody was, right?
But you can understand why people aren't.
Yes.
When there's the bias there.
Yes,
this is we're talking about maternal bias here. And how do we change this bias? And I think, well, what we're seeing happening and what really needs to happen is men need to be given the same. There needs to be a similar expectation, and needs to be no maternity leave as such, as more like parental leave, which applies to men and women, and that's started to happen in a lot of workplaces. Yeah. And men need to be able to take as much time and also be able to declare themselves as a primary caregiver.
Oh, 100%.
And that needs to be policy.
Yeah.
And when that becomes a part and parcel of a possibility, of an opportunity for fathers, then it diminishes the potential for maternal bias as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's what needs to happen, because it's hard to imagine what we'd say about a man who recently got engaged. What would we say? Exactly. He's just got engaged and I think he wants to have kids soon. All might be true.
Yeah.
But then it's not going to affect him getting the job.
No, it isn't. I don't know. I think the paternity leave at the moment for where I work is about a month. And that's it, really. There's really no conversation around whether, but to be honest, nobody has approached us to take longer than that. But yeah, it'd be good.
Well, that's the thing. I think, when women get engaged and married, and actually there's some stats on this, it says when women get engaged and married, studies show that they start to experience maternal bias. So people, consciously or unconsciously, and we just had a whole conversation there, start to question the competence and the commitment
Mm.
And it's based on a belief, whether you're conscious of this belief or not, that women can't be fully present at work if they have responsibilities at home.
Mm.
And if you think about our friends that have had children,
Mm.
you know, sleepless nights,
Yes.
hard getting any sleep coming in
Mm-hmm.
and working, but the partners are going through the same stuff.
Exactly.
So, you know, the fathers are going through the same thing, and are people questioning their
Mm-hmm.
ability to be at work and be present?
Yeah. The few men that we have at work, who've had kids, you can tell, they're tired and they're, obviously haven't had enough sleep and are stressed and whatever. But yeah, everybody's like, oh, I'm so sorry that you're going through all of that. But then nobody goes, oh shit, they can't do their job, because they're so tired.
Mm.
So yeah, that does suck.
So there you go. So that was just an example of maternal bias. And what you can do, question
Mm.
question somebody about that double standard. Would we be saying the same thing if it was a man? And you might, and like we just had that discussion,
Mm.
men should be able to take that time off as well.
Yeah,
Equally
yeah,
important.
exactly.
Mm.
But I did have a cousin who did.
Oh yeah,
So he became the primary caregiver. I think he took 6 months, and
that's
his
amazing.
wife went back to work. So
It's
that was
good.
pretty cool. I
And
loved it.
I think is it Sweden, they have
Mm,
a lot more of that going on. I think
mm.
Sweden have got it worked out. I thought it was really cool.
It
Because I
is.
just really think it's so important for fathers to have that time with their kids,
Yeah,
their young
exactly.
children. I just see so many families where children, not all the time, and again, I'm no psychologist, and this is just my personal opinion from an observation. There's a
Mm.
lot of families where the children are close to the mother, and
Yes.
that's because the father wasn't there in the formative years as much, wasn't around as much because they were working.
Yeah.
I just think that's a real shame, and there's a real opportunity to change that. So you did all right with that question, Meenal.
Did I? Because no, I felt like no, I didn't went up
No,
and
just
defended.
like be honest, because it's like sort of having an honest conversation
Mm.
about the real world, right? And what people think,
True.
whether and all we're doing here is inviting each other to open up the conversation and think about what we believe, whether it's actually true. That was our first ever. What would you do?
Mm. Exciting. More to come.
That's it. I don't have anything else. I'm just going to say this. Share stories, please. We want to hear your stories. Have you got any experiences that you want to share with us, especially on bias or discrimination? And how did you handle it? And did you handle it how you'd like to, or would you like to handle it a different way? We would love to know, and we will read it out.
Great.
Right. All right, then. That's it. That's it from us.
Yeah.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi. Hi. Hello.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How's it going? How's your week been?
It's been great. I had a few days off, so that was lovely.
Have the feature, what would you do?
Oh, yes.
Where we
Oh,
share a scenario that highlights a form of bias, and we ask Mino, what would you do? So this is again a scenario. Most of these are workplace. I will give you some others another time, but for now we'll stick to the workplace kind of environment. So imagine your manager, who is a man, often meets with men on his team for dinner or drinks, building the relationships, yeah, but rarely meets with the women outside of work. What would you do?
I mean, I think it would be interesting if I was in. Well, if these men were anywhere interesting, I'd be like, yeah, maybe I'd want to go. If they weren't, which is likely, I'd be like,
You don't know that.
I won't hang out with them anyway. But I would ask him why he does that. You know,
Mm.
like, why do you only take out the men? Like,
Yeah.
what's the go with why doesn't
Yeah.
everybody get invited? You
Yeah.
know?
That's a good question. And then and I was thinking, well, what if he says something like, oh, Jackie, she's got kids at home, so I just assume she wouldn't have time.
Yes. Actually, yeah. I mean, I reckon people say that all the time. Oh, they have to get home to the kids or whatever. It's like,
Mm.
well, maybe they want a break from the kids. Why don't you just ask them? Just
Mm.
invite them out and then they can say no.
But I've got a question though. It's interesting. What do you think could be the reasons that this manager would do that?
Well, I mean,
I've just given you one idea, but what could be other
I
reasons?
would think that he would think that, the women weren't worth developing, or, like the relationship, his relationship with them or their relationship with the team wasn't as important
Mm.
for whatever reason. Maybe the men, he assumes that the men achieve more or are, going to achieve more or going to end up being, I don't know, managers or something like that. Therefore, it's important for him to keep that relationship going.
Okay.
I wonder how much then that influences, the promotions and the, like opportunities within that workplace, then, right?
Mm. Mm.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what possible ideas he has around that behavior. But anyway,
mm,
this is what it says.
mm,
Friendships at work are valuable. We know that. And actually, I think in the age of working from home, there's nothing
mm,
more obvious
mm,
than this idea and concept of work, of those connections you have and friendships you have in your workplace,
mm,
and how it's diminished by the working from home, or it can be. You have to
mm,
put a lot of things in place to maintain that level of connection.
yeah,
Um, so important relationships, relationship building, information sharing
mm,
can happen over coffee or a pizza or drinks.
mm,
And but when people are routinely excluded from outings like these, they can miss out. And if it's a manager making arrangements, it's especially problematic. Part of their responsibility is to make sure the whole team has equal access to networking opportunities. Networking is critical, I think. And I'm thinking back to some of the social things we did in
mm.
work.
Yes.
Yes, you talk about your personal life, social things. You talk about work a lot as well. And
Mm,
you would sometimes get really good exchange of ideas, see problems, and things like that. So it's really valuable.
mm,
And I take the point. I would actually take that point if a manager said, Janet's married, she's got kids, and she's often expressed that she doesn't want to be out in the evenings.
mm,
I think that's perfectly reasonable for women and men to have that idea and feeling about themselves that they may not want to be away from their family in the evenings, and I think that's okay. Then the manager needs to make another opportunity,
yeah,
whether it's in the day, whether it's the lunch, whether it's a breakfast,
yeah,
whether it's on a weekend, even though that might not be good either. But needs to make other opportunities so that people can be included.
yeah. Actually, that's
Um,
a really good point. It ties into what we were talking about earlier. There's
mm,
not one way to interact and build relationships, right? It needs to
exactly.
be more inclusive.
I know we were talking about traditionally around alcohol and dinner in the evenings because it's after work, but then you have to bring it into work
Mm,
so that it can be more inclusive. Exactly.
mm,
What else does we say here? So this is your manager. So you have a standing to raise this with him. Say that you've noticed that he goes for drinks with men on the team more than the women, and explain why it matters. You can also offer solutions if he's uncomfortable going to dinner with women. Suggest that he meet everyone for breakfast or lunch.
mm,
And then why it happens, it's because men might feel more comfortable in the presence of men, some men.
yeah.
That's one of them. And it's an affinity bias. It's the same with some women. Some women may only feel comfortable in the presence of other women as opposed to men. It's not a one-way thing, but you can see how it's problematic in the workplace.
Mm,
Uh, And this, so what we're highlighting here is affinity bias, where you're drawn to people like you and less drawn to people that are different from you, whether that's because they're a different sex or whatever, different. Affinity bias is huge. And that's why you need to have, that's why it's really useful to have, checklists when you're interviewing. Because what tends to happen is people just, oh, I like them. You like them.
Yeah.
Because there's something that it might be an affinity bias. Like that you're a kind of person, an affinity bias. So you need to have objective criteria that everybody follows when you're interviewing people, because you can fall into that trap, and it is a trap that we can all be guilty of in who we're friends with. And if you have affinity bias with who you're friends with, fine, you are limiting you're limiting the abundance of your friendships. But in the workplace, this is how we end up with just white men in management. So you need to be a bit more aware and a bit more objective about it. Where am I reading here? So, he may be nervous for other reasons. Some men are wary of spending time with women colleagues outside of work for fear of seeming inappropriate. And that's a reasonable fear as well. But again, there's solutions to that. So I think it's opening the conversation as to why. That's why I was asking you, why would somebody do that? We didn't come up with the idea that some men might be uncomfortable with women, it being seen inappropriate.
Yeah.
The old-fashioned sense that you've got some sort of romantic agenda.
Yeah.
If you're hanging out with the opposite sex. So I feel like these are reasonable fears that we need to address rather than judge, if people are open to having that conversation.
It's a good point about the not judging.
Yeah, because you don't know unless you ask. So, like we make assumptions, or it's because of this, it's because of that. Just ask. You just noticed, like innocently, like you're genuinely curious. I think it's easy. You can have that headspace, or in your head, you're like, well, it could be this, it could be this. And the probably things you're thinking are probably really bad things, that the worst possible things. Or it could be something else, benefit of the doubt. What would be the ask? I love kids because they just ask questions.
Yeah.
Without thinking about any judgments.
Yes.
I love it. That's what the best thing. It's be a kid. Ask without judgment. And that's it. That's it. We just gave an example of affinity bias, and what you can do about it.
Awesome.
There you go. Have you learned about a new type of bias, or are you already aware of affinity bias?
No, I was not aware of affinity bias, actually. Makes sense. I was particularly interested that, it might affect the interviews that you do.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That's why HR, like I remember developing when I was interviewing people, of a checklist of things that we wanted for this role. Rightly or wrongly, we wanted, X, Y, and Z. And then assessing through the question, the CV and the questioning, whether this person had them. And if I was getting, and I'll be honest, if I was getting a feeling as, I don't know if I like this person, I had to be very objective and ask myself, well, what were the reasons? And whether that was good for the role or not. Because having different people is very good for a role. Like, me, I'm very big picture, vision, broad, and that can make me vague as well. And some people, so the complete opposite of me, which would be people I don't gel as well with, would be people that are so detailed, all the details, need to know all the details, and give you all the details.
Yes.
Verbally as well. So to me, that would be a different person. So I could easily have affinity bias for people like me that can be visionary, concise, summarize things really easily, and get to the point without giving all the detail. Yeah. But for this role, it might be more beneficial to have somebody that can really dig into the detail and give the detail. So that's what I mean. That's just an example of being really clear on what you need for the role. Do you need somebody that's direct, or do you need somebody that's so vague that can't get to the point? Or do you need something that's diplomatic? Or do you need something that's direct and is with respect? You know, you got to think about what these things, the qualities you want, and whether that candidate can give you that, or that's what you need. But anyway, affinity bias, interesting.
Yes, you've definitely given me something to think
So we'll see you next week.
about. See you next week.
Bye.
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 Hi.
Hi.
Happy Hump Day.
Happy Hump Day. Oh,
And as it's December, we're trying to be very Christmassy themed. I've got a little.
this is all I had, but they're like Christmas.
Yeah, I've got earrings in. I've got angels in.
Oh,
Like you can see, I've got angel earrings in.
yeah.
Yeah, the little Christmas earrings going on.
Mm.
Getting in the mood. Actually, I haven't put any decorations up yet. Right, I'm really getting up to that this weekend. That's my next. Do you put them up at your place?
No, I'm very lazy. I did do it like the first year or whatever I moved in, but then I realized I have to take them down. And I was one of the people who had them up like till January or something. And then I was like, oh God, I can't do that. So now I'm like, oh, it's fine.
Oh, that's fine. True. But in theory, you don't really celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, in theory, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I don't go to church or anything, so no. Yes. I mean, I celebrate Christmas with you guys. That's always.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
You like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I like the food. Yeah, mostly. And the presents, but yes, it's quite nice.
So good.
Did you have a good week?
Yes. I'm like going, what did I do?
Yes.
What did I do? Actually, last weekend I started my Christmas shopping. That's what I did. So I'm nearly finished. I still got a couple of presents to do, and cards because I need to send them this weekend to get home. I like to do written cards to my family in the UK.
Oh, that's lovely.
So I always write cards. Do you know what though? It's so ridiculous. It costs me just to send the card. I spent $40 in stamps.
Oh my God.
Just to send cards to my family. Cost nearly as much as the cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an expense just sending cards.
Yeah.
So I don't send gifts so much as cards. Yeah, it's mad.
Well, gifts would be crazy then.
I usually just say, what I usually do is send a hamper and say that's the family gift from me.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I usually do, and do it online. That's usually what I do. And then that's it. They get a hamper and they get a card from me, unless I'm there, and then I can buy actual presents. And then my mum whinges every year. I don't know what to get you. It's like, you don't need to get me anything. Just send me a card.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I'm going to get you something. I don't know what to get you. And I can't send you something because it costs more to send than what it cost.
Yes, exactly.
And my mum's not very techie, online-y. So I just suggested just get something online. You can send her links. But I think she probably needs VPN though because Australian stuff. Anyway, she doesn't have to figure it out, so it's all good.
Fair enough.
Do you buy presents in your family for each other? No, because you don't celebrate it.
Although one year, randomly, my mum, because she always has this little Christmas tree, that she puts out. And one year, randomly, she decided to give us literally white envelopes with money in it, like plain envelopes with money in it. I was like, that's lovely. It was so random. I mean, very well appreciated, but yes, very random because my brothers tend to travel during that time.
Yeah.
They're usually not here, so.
I have a question for you, right? So you do not celebrate Christmas.
Yeah.
And do people say to you Merry Christmas?
Yeah. And I people Merry Christmas.
And you say to people Merry Christmas, cool.
Yeah.
Because I overheard someone the other day go Merry Christmas, and then they go, oh, can I still say that? And they said, I don't know what you're allowed to say these days. right? And I was just like, I didn't say anything because it wasn't my conversation. I was over listening
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I had now, but this happens to me all the time. Hear things, they annoy me, but they're not. I'm not in the conversation,
Yeah.
and so I don't say anything. But I mean,
why wouldn't you be allowed to say Merry Christmas?
well, and this is me making up the story behind this.
Yeah.
This is a whole. Oh, we're so politically correct. You can't even say Merry Christmas anymore because there's people that don't celebrate Christmas, and that's perceived to be not okay, right?
Yeah.
So that's the story I'm telling myself about this conversation with the people that are having it. And I just like, who cares? I have never met someone who does not celebrate Christmas, not yet, that gets offended.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of people even being offended. I think the only reason it's a topic is just to recognize that people have different holidays that are important to them. And you can, and at work, and I guess in the workplace, it's like, well, not everybody celebrates Christmas, and that's fine, but I've never met anyone that's poo-pooing that.
The only difference I've seen over the years recently is because now people realize Diwali is a thing. Like it's more prominent. And, you know, if I take leave, I can say, oh, I'm taking it for Diwali or whatever. And people say Happy Diwali to me.
Yeah.
Like random.
Which is nice.
Which is lovely. So that's the only thing that just, it doesn't mean that you don't do Christmas. I do Christmas. And actually at our Christmas party, one of my favorite things is doing the carols. Like everybody's like, oh, last year they're like, Mina wants to sing carols.
Oh wow, do you like singing carols?
Yeah, I do.
I didn't know that.
But my boss, my director, he'd picked really, like, because he's in an a cappella group and he sings like,
wow.
And lots of the doctors, they actually play instruments. They're all very musical and talented. But he picked really like intense carols to sing, and all the young generations were like, we've never even heard of this.
I'm gonna say, what's an intense Christmas carol?
I think I'd heard it anyway. It just looked, and this year they were like, can we sing Jingle Bells?
Was it things like Deck the Halls or something?
Yeah, maybe. I can't.
I don't remember. Oh, I didn't know you liked. Oh, we have to do carols at Christmas just for you.
Oh, it was just random because, you know, somebody plays the piano and then
Wow, yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yes,
that is pretty cool. Oh wow. Oh, but yeah, that was the conversation I heard. I was just like, oh come on. Yeah, it's just about recognizing that other people celebrate different significant holidays for them, and then recognizing that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't see anybody getting offended if you say Merry Christmas and they don't celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you're so concerned, then just say Happy Holidays. Like
exactly. If you're so concerned or worried about saying the wrong thing, just say Happy Holidays. Happy Holidays.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I don't actually wear that much lipstick, but now I know that, I'll think twice about which brand of lipstick I buy. Nothing, matte lipsticks are perfectly fine as far as I know. I've just got so many. Right, okay. So wrapping up. Are you ready?
Yes.
But what would you do? I'm trying to come up with my own little jingle there. All right, so what would you do, Meenal?
Mm-hmm.
So, this is the scenario. This is a workplace scenario. You notice that your colleague, who is a woman, gets spoken over and interrupted more often than others during virtual team meetings.
Yeah, I think in this case it would be helpful just to help and to be the person who says to the person who is interrupting her that, wait, hang on a second, just let whoever say, Anna, can we just let Anna finish, please? Every time, you know, if somebody interrupts, and it doesn't have to be Anna, it can be anyone, just be like, no, let's just wait for her to finish her thought and then you can speak afterwards. So that's very helpful.
Good. Cool. Actually, I've had this in meetings, like I've had this, I've noticed this, and it's actually not always men that do it, but the fact is, stats show that women are interrupted more than men.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why we're talking about it. But I have seen that other women specific women interrupt people a lot more.
Yeah.
And I think it's a quality.
Yeah.
And it is, I've done it. I'm not saying I've never interrupted people, I totally have. But I'm conscious of it, and I'm conscious of doing it purposefully now. As in, so for example, if I'm chairing a meeting and people are talking and the person who's talking is talking for too long about something that's going to take up too much time, they're repeating themselves, they're repeating what they've said, that kind of thing, I have to interrupt them because it's my job to keep us moving through the items and keep on track. So that's purposeful interruption, right? The difference is somebody's making a point, you disagree or you have a thought, and you have to get it out your mouth now, rather than just waiting for that person to finish what they're saying. Or you disagree and you want to cut them off, and it's very disrespectful. And so there's a difference. There's definitely appropriate time where you may need to interrupt someone. But there's a difference between just interrupting people who's in the middle of an idea or making a statement about something. And that's the difference. And especially when it's repetitive.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I find that if you let the person finish anyway, sometimes they clarify what you were going to, say in the first place, because obviously they haven't finished saying what they've wanted to say. So instead of interrupting, if you take that time to formulate what you're going to say or whatever, then, it doesn't sound so off the cuff as well. So that can be helpful. So just wait and let them finish. Then you can have your say. But I think the more people that are a little bit more conscious about it, then the better it is. But I have been in meetings where I think it's more because, like I've said, I have a very female dominated team. So there's only usually one or two men in the room anyway. And it's usually the female interrupting. And it's just their personality. So it's not I think, meant to be.
Yeah, I get it. But just because it's the personality doesn't mean it's a good thing. And I agree. I've seen women do that, where they constantly, there's certain people that will get interrupted a lot.
Yeah.
And certain people that will do the interrupting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that really needs managing by whoever's leading that team or whoever's chairing that meeting.
Yes.
It's often in meetings when it happens. It really needs to be managed so that everybody feels like they are heard.
Yes. Yeah.
Otherwise, you get people that will never contribute.
Yeah. And who have great ideas.
And who have great ideas, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're right. It just so happens that when they've done the research, it's women that are more regularly interrupted than men. But if you talk about it generally, there are people with personality to do that.
Yeah.
And people that are more likely to sit back. And it's your job as a leader to get everybody's ideas. Yeah. Everybody's great ideas. Otherwise, if they've not got good ideas or got something of value to contribute, then why are they there?
Yeah. And I think I've been in a couple of meetings where the chair, and I can't remember whether they were male or female, but they've realized, like they've gone through the room and realized that, somebody has an idea, but they haven't spoken up, maybe because they're intimidated or whatever it is. And they've just stopped everyone and gone, do you have an idea? Do you want to talk? And at that point, because they've been prompted, they've gone, oh yes, I think it's, whatever. And that's really good chairing of a meeting and good leadership right there, to realize that people want to talk. And it's very good.
Exactly. And then I guess to the point of what you would say, because it's like, what would you do if you notice consistently that this person were getting over, interrupted every time they tried to talk? What would you do? I'm not reading what it says here. I would say, personally, I would go take that other person to the side and say, I take both of them to the side separately, have separate conversations. With the person that's doing the interrupting, if it was like a characteristic that they constantly did,
Yes.
I would say, I don't know if you've noticed, but you often interrupt this person or other people. They might be just doing it to lots of people when they're talking. Can you think about letting them finish before you make your point? I've given that as constructive feedback. I said, what you say is usually really valuable as well. Absolutely. Really valuable. And I always want to hear what you have to say. But I'd like to hear what everyone has to say. So it's important that we let people finish speaking without interrupting them. So I'd say that. And then with the other person say, I noticed that when you were talking, you were interrupted by this person and it happened. Is that something you've noticed? See what they're saying. Yeah, no, whatever. Okay. So I'd just say, maybe try this next time. It's up to you. Or I would ask them, what would you do next time if you're interrupted? See what they say. So the idea is for them to come up with their own solution. And if they don't have any ideas, then I've had to prompt them and say, maybe you could say, I just want to finish what I was saying. Yeah. Because that's okay. That's all you need to say. It doesn't have to be rude or with anger. Just say, hold on, I just want to finish what I was saying. Yeah. Just say it loud enough. That would be my advice. What would you say? What would you do?
Yeah, I think it is important to tell the person who's interrupting that, just let people talk, especially if it's a pattern of behavior, right? But definitely, and if you're in that meeting, I would say that you need to, and the person who's been interrupted doesn't say anything, then people should be like letting her or him, if it's a him, finish talking before, so that's helpful, recognizing it so you can help the person.
The reason I speak to the person who was being interrupted is because
can empower them to
empowering them, because otherwise you're putting them in the victim mode, like I'm helpless, I can help myself, so I'm going to do it, I'm going to rescue you.
Absolutely.
Anyway, what does it say? It says why it matters. It's undermining to be repeatedly interrupted.
Of course.
It means that the team loses out on the woman's ideas and insights if it's a woman. Plus, in a virtual context, meetings can carry more weight than they otherwise might without informal interactions in the office. So if you're not seeing each other in the office, the virtual meeting is your only decision-making discussion forum. So without informal interactions in the office, virtual meetings become the central avenue for information sharing, brainstorming, and reputation building. It's so true. If I think about it, I'll come back to this in a minute. You notice that your colleague who is a woman gets spoken over and interrupted more often than others during virtual team meetings. So what do? In the moment, you can use the chat feature to write something like, can we circle back to Jessica? Because like you said, I'll let that person speak. So instead of saying it, you could just type in the chat, can we circle back to Jessica? In the long run, encourage norms that promote equal participation by everyone using the chat feature when they want to chime in, so that it's not interrupting. That's a good idea. You think, I need to say this. Because sometimes, and I'm so guilty of this, I think it and I feel like I have to say it or else I'll forget. So it's like write it down is the thing, but you can put it in the chat and then it doesn't interrupt them and they can look at it when they're finished. Assuming it's a virtual meeting, of course. Like using the chat feature when you want to chime in. If you're brainstorming, have people take turns. There's lots of methodologies for that, activities for that kind of equal participation. Or use a virtual brainstorming tool. You can also use breakout rooms to create smaller groups. One study found that women get similar amounts of airtime as men in groups of 6 or fewer. Didn't know that. But less than men when in groups of 7 or more. Interesting. In general, women are interrupted far more often than men. Researchers believe that this happens just as often in virtual meetings, if not more. This may be rooted in a common form of bias. People often value women's contributions less highly than men's. And it's called performance bias. And that just means there's perception that women perform less well than men. It's a perception. It is a perception in lots of things. Women drivers, for example.
Yes. Exactly.
That's a bias, a stereotype that's out there. It's true. It's about letting everybody have an equal voice at the table.
Yeah, and not missing out on good ideas.
Yeah, missing out on good ideas. And actually, I'm thinking about scenarios from my corporate days where people would be perceived as not contributing. Like the perception of that person from not speaking
Yes.
during meetings is that they don't have anything valuable to contribute.
Yeah.
They are not a good leader, boss, manager, right? I'm totally heard about that.
Yeah.
And then I've actually worked with this person as my boss, let's say. And they've been really good. So that's why I think it's important to not only have conversation with the interrupting people, but the people that are allowing people to interrupt them or not speaking.
Yeah.
Because the fact is, if you're not speaking, you're not contributing visibly, there must have been behind the scenes to get where they are. And smaller groups, they would speak more. And that's that I'd actually thinking about it. I've noticed that. In really small groups, like 2 or 3 or 4 people, they're way more vocal. But when it's when it's a lot bigger, don't hear a peep.
Yeah. And plus, I think some people speak because they want to be seen as contributing, but they're not actually saying anything of note, or maybe they're just regurgitating, what other people have said, or, summarizing people. I've known people like that, and it's just like, you don't need to do that, So, but they want to be seen as contributing, so they do.
And probably the perception is they are generally.
Exactly, when it's not actually that. So
so strategies, like from either side, but I've noticed that perception of people that of not being good managers, leaders, or whatever, contributors, because they don't speak in big groups.
Yeah, absolutely. It is intimidating as well in a big group, so I can understand people who are a little bit shyer. Is that a word? A little bit shy. Not doing so, but yes.
Okay. Well, I think that's it. Have you got anything else to add?
No, these are my pearls of wisdom.
All right then. Well, that's it from us. Until next week. Happy Hump Day. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Hi. Happy Hump Day.
Happy Hump Day. How are you?
Good. It's a massive countdown to Christmas, hey?
Oh, yes, I know. I can't believe I keep, for some reason, still thinking we're in November, because I keep looking at, when all the Christmas parties are and everything. And I'm just like, why are people doing it now? And then I'll realize, oh, it's like 3 weeks away from Christmas. So,
yeah, it is full on at the minute. I have something, this weekend after the Wednesday. No, I have something every weekend.
Oh, wow. Yes, I'm going to a faculty Christmas party, which I'm told is going to be quite fancy on Monday. So I'm like,
ooh, fancy.
I'm like, what should I bring? And I'm like, I need to bring wine, and I know nothing about wine. And I'm like, shit. I'm like having to go to Dan Murphy's probably and be like, what is a good wine?
Yeah, they have good people there usually to advise you.
Exactly. I don't know. Most people drink red, or is it better to go with white? I don't know.
No, like I'm a red. I prefer red myself. It depends. Is it a day event or a night event?
It's a night event.
Probably a red.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. I would drink Coke, of course, but
of course.
How's your Christmas shopping going?
I still got to get a couple of presents. I'll have to do that this weekend probably. I'm just thinking about all the baking. I do all the baking.
Yes.
When am I going to do that? I'll literally be baking Christmas Eve. I can just feel it now. But yeah, the baking. I'm working, and the thing is, I'm working right up until pretty much till Christmas Eve. So It's busy, but it's okay. It'll work out. Always does.
Yes. Positive. Definitely.
So, Ina, what would you do?
Mm.
What would you do, Nina? I really need to come up with a jingle. What would you do? Okay, so a co-worker is complaining that their team is switching their video call software to accommodate a visually impaired woman on the team. What would you do?
I'd say get over it. Like, it just happened to be one of my days.
It depends what day they caught you on.
Yeah.
Or if they caught you on a bad day, what would you say?
If they caught me this last week, I'd be like, are you seriously talking to me about this? Because you need to piss off. And just get over it. What are they called? What is that flower that everybody uses that is like, no, cupcake? I don't know, snowflake, yes. I would be like,
is that a flower?
I don't know, when people say, get over it, snowflake or something.
I have no idea what that means. It's gotta be American.
Like I've heard it somewhere. I'd be like, just go and have some real problems. Like, seriously. Can you please come and don't come back to me with any real problems because I'm not going to take you seriously.
Okay, and if they caught you on a good day, what would you say?
On a good day, I'd be like, okay, so what is the issue with switching to this new software? What is the actual problem aside from the inconvenience that you perceive? And then if she said something legitimate, I don't know how to download it, or I don't know how it works, I'd be like, okay, then let me help you download it. Let me show you how it works, or something like that. Or if it was something stupid, why did we need to change in the first place? I'd be like, you can suck my anyway. Which is my new favorite line for.
Oh, you just say that without finishing, yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I think that's how I would do it. Maybe after my holidays, it wouldn't be different. But yes, for now, I think.
Yeah. I actually remember something similar happening at work. A new starter, and they were installing one of those mobile desk things.
Oh, right.
And we haven't met this new starter, obviously. But people were complaining. They're like, "Oh, where do they get some special desk?" Kind of curious as well, like what, like why? Because nobody knew who this person was coming was.
Yeah.
So there was rumblings, but also everybody wanted a
a desk that stands.
Yeah. Obviously, nobody else was getting one, but ultimately, this person started. They're lovely. You got to know them, and you understood that they'd had a serious accident and many years ago, and had back problems, so they had to stand up a lot. And this is why, and that's a great example of accommodating someone with a disability, basically. But how it was received was, what happened was they ended up putting, not everybody got a stand-up desk, but they would put a couple on each floor so that you could move to a stand-up desk and work. And that became more, because obviously people must have said something, well, it would be really nice because you just don't want to be sitting at your desk 8 hours or whatever. So that was the only time I've seen anything similar in this scenario. But if it said, and the person hears it or heard about people saying this about them, then that would, imagine how that would make them feel.
I know, it'd be terrible. Yet again, and I'm sure it's not the first time somebody's complained around them. So
yeah, probably not the first time somebody's complained that something's been. I mean, that's what equality means to me. It means making the environment, making everybody's environment in a way that they can thrive. Because when everybody's thriving, everybody's thriving. Yeah. And that's what it means to me. So it doesn't mean everybody gets treated the same, which to me is a bit of a misconception. To me, it means everybody's given the opportunity to thrive and be the best versions of themselves and contribute and feel valued and have meaningful work. So
Absolutely.
I don't really see how you have a problem with that. But anyway, this is what it's saying. It matters because employees with disabilities hear this comment, they may feel as though they aren't valued, don't belong. And it affects more people than you realise. And I said 4.4 million Australians have a visible and invisible disability. A lot. What is that? It's like nearly 20%, isn't it? Of the population.
Are you really asking me to do math?
Yeah, it's about 20% of the population. So that's like 1 in 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I imagine some of them might be not of working age. But anyway, 1 in 5 Australians, visible and invisible disability. And it has a big impact. Employees with disabilities are often less happy at work than their colleagues. And that gap goes away when workplaces are accommodating and inclusive. It's just something to think about, right?
Absolutely.
That was all. Do you have anybody with disabilities, visible or invisible, in your workplace?
No, I don't believe so. Not in our
No.
we have a few people with, as you said, like back injury and stuff, who need to, say, for example, need a standing desk, need to go for a walk every hour or that sort of thing.
So yeah, you do then.
Yeah. That be considered a disability? I don't know.
If it's permanent, it could be temporary, but I mean, it might be permanent. I don't know.
Yeah. No.
Well, it'd be interesting if there wasn't even a disability term. It's just differing abilities. Maybe that's what disabilities means.
Yeah.
Differing abilities.
Yeah.
As opposed to disabled, which sounds more harsh. It's just that everybody has differing abilities. So we provide an environment to allow them to thrive, right?
Absolutely. And we gain a lot as well. Like with everything. If you have diversity, you make your environment better in general.
All right. Better wrap it up. I love talking to you. That was very funny. I liked your response.
Probably not the positive, response we want, but anyway, whatever.
Oh, yes, we're just being real, right?
Yes, exactly.
All right, lovely. Happy Hump Day, everyone. See you later. Bye.